Funding for Schaeferless is provided by Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Hey gang, today I want to talk about Succession. I know that seems like a completely out of left field topic for me to discuss on this channel, but really, when has that ever stopped me before? A few months ago, I was in the mood to start a new show, and Euphoria and Succession were the two shows in my HBO Max watch list. So I held a poll asking you guys which one I should watch, and Succession narrowly won. And holy shit, thank God for that extra 6% because I adore this show. It's already secured a spot as one of my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time, and I wholeheartedly believe it's the best show on television right now. I don't think that's a bold statement considering all the awards and acclaim it's gotten since it first started airing in 2018. But even so, it feels like there should be more people talking about it, which is why I'm making this video to get the word out. Also because none of my friends have seen it yet, so I don't really have anyone to talk to about it, so that's why I'm talking to you guys about it right now. Oh yeah, I won't do any major spoilers in this video. I'll explain the basic premise and the characters, plus some of the settings for episodes in later seasons, but I won't get into any of the juicy plot points. You do not want to get this show spoiled for you, trust me. Just like how you should trust Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. They're never gonna get bought out by MirrorWqve because MirrorWqve is a fictional company. But Squarespace is real. So let's hear some real things about it now. Squarespace is a fantastic, intuitive, online website builder that allows you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Present your work using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs. Display projects in customizable galleries and add password-protected pages to share private works with clients. You can even present your videos from YouTube, Vimeo, and Animoto on your Squarespace site. Add an image overlay to your video to improve your website's load speed by waiting to embed video players until playback starts. Every design automatically includes a unique mobile presence that matches the overall style of your website, so your content will look great on every device, every time. And if you don't want that, you can always disable the mobile view from Website Manager. Buying a domain from Squarespace is so simple because there are no hidden fees or price hikes. Each domain comes with an ad-free parking page and free WHOIS privacy on eligible domains. Squarespace sells over 200 top-level domains, so you can find the perfect name for your website. Choose a URL that ends in .com, .net, .org, or you can always get a more specific one like .art if you want to be fancy. If you're ready to share your passions or promote your business with the rest of the world, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Schaeferless to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. In a nutshell, Succession is about the Roy family, helmed by patriarch Logan Roy, who's basically a Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates-like media mogul who owns and operates one of the largest and most powerful companies in the world, MirrorWqve. And the main crux of the show is his children fighting over who will succeed him and take over the company when he retires or dies. Preferably when he dies because he's a gigantic asshole, as you'd probably expect from someone who holds this much power. Moving on to his children, you got Kendall, a middle-aged blowhard tryhard who really wants to be seen as hip, which leads to some of the most beautifully cringeworthy scenes ever filmed. He frequently goes back and forth between kissing his father's ass and trying to take the company from him by force. And his constantly shifting motivations, often for the most tragic and messed up of reasons, really makes you feel for him in spite of his obvious character flaws. I'm trying to be as vague as possible for the sake of spoilers, but there's one season finale that messes him up so hard that he just spends the entire next season being depressed as all hell. I've never seen a character embody sheer emptiness on screen better than Kendall in this one season, and it's such a testament to Jeremy Strong's harrowing performance as the character. While the cast across the board is uniformly amazing, it's generally agreed that Strong is the MVP, being able to perfectly adapt to the undeserved highs and unfortunate lows of this character. But he's just one of the 3 Roy kids vying for the top spot. Or was it 4? Nah, I'm pretty sure there's only 3 kids. Anyway, yes, so Roman. He's played by Kieran Culkin, brother of Macaulay Culkin. I just thought that was neat. Also, he's the guy who played Wallace in Scott Pilgrim, so if that doesn't make you want to watch this show, I don't know what will. While Kendall seems like the obvious choice to take over the company from a glance, despite the fact that he can't really live up to his father's business practices when you start to look at him deeper, Roman is the exact opposite. On the surface, he looks like a complete slacker, a class clown who should never be considered for any job, let alone one as significant as the head honcho of one of the most powerful companies in the world. But over time, you start to see that beneath his I don't give a shit attitude, he he's actually just as business savvy and morally bankrupt as his father. They show off how flippant and immoral he is in the very first episode, when he makes a bet with this random kid that if he gets a home run, he'll give him $1 million. The kid hits the ball but doesn't run around the bases in time, and then Rome's like, "Oh no, sorry, ooh-woo," mocking the kid as he rips the check up right in front of him. Yeah, Roman's a deeply fucked up and disturbed person. On the other hand, nowhere is it more evident that he's a legitimate heir to the throne than in season 3, episode 5, which by the way is one of the best episodes in the whole show. It's such a delicious shit show. At one point, the literal president of the United States is calling to talk to Logan, who is preoccupied at the moment. Logan's team frantically debates which one of them is the closest thing to Logan, and they ultimately decide that Roman is the best one to talk to the president in Logan's stead. It's one of quite a few very significant moments for a character that just appeared to be comic relief at the very beginning. You slowly start to see him as a dark horse who could potentially swoop in and take the company at the end, as long as he stops dicking around and getting in his own way. The last Roy sibling to talk about is Shiv, and I don't know if this is a very popular opinion or not, but by the end of the currently 3 seasons, Shiv ended up being my favorite character in the whole show. Not because she's more moral than her brothers, oh god no, she's just as fucked up as them in a lot of ways, but I feel like her complexities as a character are kinda slept on by a lot of people, and Sarah Snook's performance in this show is easily one of the most underrated. Shiv starts out as an outsider to the company. In fact, she's a political advisor for a senator that really does not like Logan. She's the only one of the Roy siblings who's made a successful career for herself outside of Daddy's company. And yet, this isn't enough for her. She gradually gets sucked into the promise of power within Waystar Royco, considering the top position at the company to be her birthright, despite the fact that she hasn't worked there very long at all. She constantly asserts how much she deserves this position she didn't earn, which majorly backfires for her in a certain season 2 episode that is also easily one of the best ones in the whole show. I was doing some exercise walking while watching this episode on my phone, and what she said at the dinner table quite literally stopped me in my tracks. It's such a tense, incredible scene. Shiv is also a lot more socially conscious and progressive than the rest of her family, often expressing dissent to their more conservative values. It's definitely one of the points in her favor when it comes to taking the top spot. She clearly wants to instigate change at the company since she isn't pleased with her dad and his archaic ways. She does have admirable goals in her pursuit of implementing her progressive ideals, and yet, she'll drop all that in a heartbeat if it means advancing at the company. There's one episode where the company is in the midst of a sexual harassment scandal, and she actually manipulates a woman out of testifying against the company. She frames it all in a way that expresses concern for the woman, advising her to avoid all the public backlash that unfortunately comes whenever a woman speaks out about anything. And she's very candid about the fact that she's acting out of her own self-interests. But it's still so eerily fucked up to see her do this in the pursuit of power. There's just something so fascinating about a character who constantly touts their morals and values, only to throw them all away in an instant, just for a chance to be seated at the right hand of the father. After everything I've said, you're probably thinking, wow, all 3 of these kids seem horrendously unlikable. And yeah, you're right, they are. Succession is a show with practically 0 likable characters. Just arrogant, rich, pompous, fucked up individuals, all vying for the keys to the most influential kingdom in the whole world. I bet you're wondering why I'm in love with a show with 0 likable characters. Well, apart from the fact that these are some of the most compelling characters I've ever seen, since a character being compelling and being likable don't necessarily go hand in hand, the ultimate fact of the matter is that as horrible as these kids are, it's so easy to rally behind them as they try to take down the biggest prick of all, Logan. If the patriarch of the Roy household wasn't the most unlikable character of all, the entire premise of the show would collapse in on itself. But it becomes clear time and time again how much of a megalomaniacal monster Logan Roy is. Not only was he an emotionally and sometimes physically abusive father during their childhoods, but he maintains his stranglehold on his children's emotions during their adulthoods. I won't go too deep into the Machiavellian manipulations he performs on his kids, but they're truly heartbreaking to see. Especially the ones done to Kendall. You guys are truly not ready for the confrontations between these 2 characters. I'm telling you, their scenes together feel like a Greek tragedy in modern times. Anyway, I talked about a lot of heavy stuff, so I should probably mention that this show isn't all drama. In fact, it's a comedy drama that perfectly offsets all the insanely tragic and intense scenes with tons of witty jokes and funny scenarios. So why don't we move on to some of the more lighthearted characters, including my second and third faves, Tom and Greg. That's not to say that these two characters don't have dramatic relevance, but they also offer some of the funniest moments in the whole show. Tom is Shiv's fiance and later husband who works at the company, and he's just such a delightful little weirdo that I just couldn't get enough of him. Tom exists to be everyone's punching bag, the guy who's constantly made fun of by the rest of the Roy family, and he just takes it all in stride. This is mainly because he ends up getting his own punching bag to vent out all his frustrations on. That being cousin Greg. He's the bumbling and simplistic grandson of Logan's brother, getting a position at the company mainly through nepotism, while slowly and surprisingly working his way into the family's inner circle. He's easily manipulated and will do anything for anyone without asking questions, and his dichotomy with Tom is just so fascinating and so fun. Tom constantly treats him like shit, and yet he also divulges important secrets that are weighing on his conscience, stuff that he can't even tell his wife. He also seems genuinely proud whenever Greg starts to dabble in the sort of manipulative behavior that the rest of the family constantly throws around willy-nilly. Tom would never admit it, but he cares about and really needs Greg Baca. And ultimately, Greg doesn't mind having Tom there to kinda sorta guide him, despite all the shit that Tom gives him. However, when Greg tries to assert his independence from Tom, that's when we get stuff like the water bottle scene, which I'm sure anyone who's seen the show agrees is peak fiction. Not only hilarious, but an incredibly fascinating dive into Tom's psyche, and how he takes his frustrations with his relationship with Shiv and projects those onto Greg. Speaking of which, Tom and Shiv also have one of the most compelling dynamics in the entire show. But I'm not going to get into that at all, because I don't even want to subtly spoil some unbelievably amazing scenes. All you need to hear from me right now is that Tom and Greg have such a fun, delightfully unhealthy dynamic, and I would 100% watch a show that's just the two of them going on wacky misadventures together. So that's pretty much all the major players in the show. Who the fuck is that guy? Well, silly me. I guess I forgot to talk about the oldest of the four Roy siblings, Connor. Honestly, we're 3 seasons in, and Connor doesn't really serve much purpose to the show outside of just being comic relief. He's completely disconnected from his family and the company, and we mainly just follow his delusional quest to be the president, despite having zero experience doing anything. Don't get me wrong, I like Connor. He's very funny. He was indeed interested in politics from a very young age. But he also has never really impacted the story at all, and you could probably write him out of the whole show. Again though, I like him, he's funny. Now, I don't have time to get into every supporting character, but some of my favorites include Stewie, Kendall's manipulative old college buddy who weasels his way onto Waystar's board, Willa, Connor's girlfriend who does not take criticism of her playwriting skills very well, and Jerry, an important figure at the company who frequently allies with Roman. They have a bit of a sick thing going on that I won't get into, but it's probably my least favorite part of the whole show. But Jerry's still good otherwise. I also want to mention Jess, Kendall's longtime assistant who doesn't really have much of a character, but that makes it all the better when we see reaction shots of her finally starting to get tired of Ken's shit in season 3. So I've talked a lot about how great the characters are in this show, but another key factor that makes Succession so consistently engaging is its use of setting. The show is like 90% characters having conversations, and not only are the conversations so compelling, but most episodes take place at some sort of unique location that adds flavor to the proceedings and makes the dramatic scenes stick out in your mind more. Prague is a great episode because not only do we get really compelling drama with Ken, Roman, and Tom, but it all takes place at this super cool underground nightclub that they go to for Tom's bachelor party. It's not just a random location either, it's a place Rome needs to go to for business reasons, and a place where Ken can run into and confront someone who didn't want to partner with him earlier. The location serves the story, in addition to being a cool backdrop for dramatic conversations. Another great episode that owes a ton of its dramatic effectiveness to its setting is Too Much Birthday, where Kendall shows what a stunted man-child he is by throwing himself this elaborate, ridiculous, excessive as all hell birthday party. And I'm not even gonna spoil the sheer insanity of what he puts together. Just know that this episode is a great microcosm of his character, with the extravagant and ludicrous birthday party being a great contrast to the the emptiness he feels inside. Weddings are also a popular pick for shit to go down at in this show, being the perfect backdrop for two incredibly tense season finales. The juxtaposition of such a should-be happy event and the insane dramatic turns in the story that take place during said event is just brilliant. And I won't tell you too much about my personal favorite episode in the whole series thus far, the season 2 finale, but it's one of my top 10 favorite episodes of television for very good reasons. One of which being the tremendous air of suspense and misery being juxtaposed with a beautiful cruise ship vacation. It's the absolute perfect definition of the term the calm before the storm, and it kept me on the edge of my seat from beginning to end, largely because of its genius use of setting. Also, in case you've seen the show and you're wondering why the season 3 finale isn't my favorite episode, don't worry, it's a very close second, and it does have the best ending of any episode in the whole show. I haven't even gotten into other stuff, like the immensely strong and alive feeling cinematography, for instance. I'd highly recommend Thomas Flight's video essay, The Succession Character You Never See, for more info on that. But at the end of the day, this is just a show that I'm extremely passionate about that I would wholeheartedly recommend for you to check out yourself. It's not going to be a show that appeals to everyone's tastes, and admittedly, not everything in season 1 is that great or interesting. But trust me, even if it doesn't grab you initially, it's absolutely worth sticking with it. At least watch up to season 1 episode 6, which is great and generally agreed to be a pretty big turning point for the show's quality. From then on, it's pretty smooth sailing, especially when you get to seasons 2 and 3, which are easily some of the best seasons of television I've ever seen in my life. The show's available on HBO Max in its entirety, and it's been renewed for a season 4, which I absolutely cannot wait for. Make sure to hop on board now before that hits. And you're welcome in advance for this recommendation. Good night, Tri-State area, and good luck at beating me at Boar on the Floor. I am the undisputed champion.